let out a sharp gasp, the kind that drags your lungs full of air before your brain catches up. I've shifted between worlds for as long as I can remember, but this one felt different. Stone walls, torchlight, a room so large it swallowed sound. The air was thick, warmer than it should have been, carrying a musky smell like old leather and hot metal. My heartbeat stuttered. And on a massive cushioned bed lay the thing that froze me in place. A Tyrannosaurus Rex. It wasn't a skeleton in a museum or a CGI monster on a movie screen. It was real. Its hide gleamed like bronze under the firelight, scarred in places, thick in others, each plate of scale big enough to use as a shield. Its chest rose and fell slowly, each breath rumbling like far-off thunder. When it exhaled, the gust hit me full in the face, hot, moist, and heavy with the scent of meat. Its head shifted, slow and deliberate, and one amber eye opened. The world shrank to that single eye. Bigger than my fist, burning like a candle trapped in glass, it locked onto me with a weight that pinned me to the floor. I'd faced monsters before, fangs, claws, shadows, but this was different. This wasn't a storybook dragon or a video game boss. This was a dinosaur, the king of them all, and I was close enough to count the cracks in its teeth. Every rational part of me screamed to stay still, to not breathe, to pretend I was stone, but awe collided with terror and the pressure broke. All composure vanished, my mouth opened, and I screamed. Then I was back at the table, jerking upright so fast my chair scraped against the floor. My pencil rolled off the page and clattered away, and the sudden motion made my mom glance over from the sink. She let out a sigh. "Honestly, Tim, the sooner you stop dragging it out, the sooner you'll be finished, and then maybe you can play your game." I groaned, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "I'm never going to need this level of math." She just clucked her tongue. "Keep working." "Fine," I whined, slumping back over my notebook, but I couldn't steady my hand enough to write clearly. "My name is Tim. I used to think I was just a normal boy who had weird dreams, but that all changed when I turned 8.
When I was younger, mornings meant stories. I'd wake up and sit at the breakfast table, yawning into a bowl of cereal while telling my parents about the crazy adventures I'd had at night. Sometimes it was climbing giant trees so tall the clouds snagged on their branches. Sometimes it was racing down rivers that glowed like melted stars. Other times it was running for my life from things I couldn't even describe. At first, my parents laughed. They thought it was all just my imagination. My dad even started writing some of them down, saying one day he might turn them into a kid's book. Tim's Big Adventures. Cute, right? That didn't last. One morning, I told them about a nightmare where I fell off a cliff and actually felt myself die before waking up. I never want to see their faces like that again. My mom went pale, and my dad closed the notebook. With me not sharing like I used to, it soon got packed away somewhere. They would still ask at first, but as I remembered more and more, I realized it was better to hold back. They saw them as dreams, but I knew they were real. And then the memories stopped fading. Instead of slipping away like dreams usually do, they clung to me, every detail sharp and alive. The feel of dirt under my fingernails, the smell of bread fresh out of a clay oven, the sound of a sword sliding free before a fight. I had lived it. And each time, the same thing appeared, a status screen. Like something straight out of the isekai stories I loved, or my favorite video games. Every world gave me one. Abilities, skills, stats. It became my guide, the one tool that helped me figure out where I was and what I could do to survive. Once I was taken in by a kind farmer. For that life, it was like having another father. My hands blistered in the first days from working the soil, but the system gave me strange gifts. Skills that let me coax sprouts out of the ground faster, grow vegetables bigger and sweeter, even make fields thrive through drought. Before long, people traveled from other villages just to taste our food. But it wasn't all peaceful. Monsters prowled the fields at night, drawn to the energy I poured into the crops. I learned how to set traps, wield a spear, and guard what I had built. That life taught me how to create, how to defend, and how to take pride in something as simple as a row of green shoots in the sun. Another time, I became a baker in a bustling stone city. The morning started before dawn, with ovens glowing and the smell of fresh bread drifting out into the streets. There was magic in my flour, or maybe just in me. When I baked, the food carried power. My loaves gave miners stamina for long shifts underground, and my sweet roll sharpened hunters' reflexes before they left for the forest. People lined up outside the shop not just for the taste, but for the strength they gained. When I woke back home, I realized the knowledge stayed with me. I could still cook better than most adults. I have to be careful with that skill. If I let it slip, I'll end up cooking dinner every night. I learned that lesson with math. The moment I showed I was ahead, they shoved me into harder classes and buried me in homework. If my parents caught on that I could whip up perfect bread or meals out of scraps, I'd be trapped at the stove forever. So now, just like with my other abilities, I keep quiet and act like a normal kid. Better to let everyone think it's coincidence than risk becoming the family chef on top of being the family genius.
And once, I was a soldier, recruited into an army soon after I arrived, handed a helmet and a sword. The training was harsh, but the system guided me. Stances, strikes, and strategies. I fought in drills, then in real battles, learning how soldiers moved like pieces on a game board. I studied maps, memorized formations, and earned the chance to lead a squad. That world taught me to see patterns in chaos, to plan 3 steps ahead, to think like a commander. Even now, when I look at a map or play a strategy game, my brain starts drawing lines and countermoves without me even trying. Another life took me to a healer's hut at the edge of a marsh. The woman who lived there had hands as steady as stone and eyes that seemed to see past skin and bone. By day, she brewed teas from herbs, roots, and blossoms she gathered, offering them to villagers who thought her wisdom was nothing more than medicine. But at night, when the firelight burned low, she showed me what truly lay beneath it all. She taught me to quiet my thoughts, to picture the body not as flesh, but as threads of light woven together. With a breath, I could trace a fever like following a river upstream, then treat the source where it pooled. With focus, I could will torn skin to knit closed. The herbs were just a mask, something for the villagers to believe in. But the real healing came from thought, intent, and will. The system whispered hints as I practiced. Hold longer, steady your breathing, think of warmth spreading outward. And sometimes it worked. A bruise fading, a cough easing, a cut sealing faster than it should. But not every wound could be healed. Some lives slipped through my hands no matter how hard I focused. Those mites were the hardest. They taught me that healing wasn't just about mending. It was about carrying the weight of what couldn't be saved. I was also apprenticed to a wandering scholar, the kind who collected stories the way others collect coins. We traveled by foot and by cart, tracing old roads between broken statues and quiet temples. He taught me scripts from 3 kingdoms and how to sharpen a quill with a knife. At night, we mapped the sky. My status screen flickered with new entries, language, lore, cartography, each one a doorway to understanding. He called knowledge a compass. He said a good map makes strange places feel less scary. Those lives shaped me. They made me older than I looked, gave me knowledge I shouldn't have had, and made it harder to blend in with kids my own age. At school, I couldn't help myself at first. I solved problems I shouldn't have been able to, answered questions I hadn't studied for. Teachers noticed. Kids noticed. Soon, I was the gifted kid, the one who got shoved into harder and harder classes. It sounded cool at first, but really it just meant isolation. While kids my age were playing tag or building forts, I was stuck with textbooks and problems that made my head hurt. Now I spend my afternoons drowning in advanced math homework, the kind college students complain about. My parents think they've got some boy genius. What they actually have is a kid who can't stop slipping between worlds. Although those worlds were full of dangers, they also held wonders. I once stood on the deck of a flying ship, its sails glowing with starlight as we drifted above the clouds. The wind was cold and sharp, but the ship cut through it like an arrow, leaving trails of glittering frost in its wake. Looking down, I saw storms raging far below us, lightning splitting the clouds like shattered glass. And yet up on deck, it was calm, like sailing across a silver ocean. I remember clutching the railing, my stomach flipping between fear and awe, thinking, this is what it must feel like to ride the sky itself.
Another time, I wandered through a forest made entirely of glass trees. Every step I took rang out like a chime, my footsteps echoing in 1,000 tiny notes. The branches tinkled in the wind, and when sunlight streamed through them, the whole forest blazed like a cathedral of rainbows. I reached out to touch one trunk, half expecting it to shatter, but instead it thrummed like crystal when I laid my palm against it. For a moment, I thought I could hear the trees singing to each other. There was a festival in a quiet village where children tossed enchanted leaves into the night sky. Each leaf burst into fireworks, green, red, gold, exploding into showers of sparks that never burned, only floated down as glowing feathers. The air smelled like roasted nuts and sweet cakes, and the sound of laughter filled the square. One little boy pressed a glowing feather into my hand, and for hours afterward, my palm tingled with warmth. Once, I tasted fruit that fizzed like soda and left my tongue glowing bright blue. The juice bubbled and popped like drinking lightning, and for the rest of that world, people laughed every time I opened my mouth and my teeth shone like lanterns. I tried to act annoyed, but honestly, I thought it was hilarious too. Another time, I listened to a whale sing beneath a sheet of ice. I lay flat on the frozen surface, my ear pressed against it, and the song rolled through me like a heartbeat in slow motion. The sound was so deep it rattled my bones. For a moment, I felt like the world itself was humming along with the whale, like I was hearing something meant for the planet and not for me. And once, I even held fire in my hands. It curled and danced across my palms, glowing like liquid sunlight. But it wasn't wild or dangerous. It seemed to be alive, pulsing like it had its own heartbeat. I remember laughing out loud, not from power, but from wonder, because it felt less like I was holding fire and more like fire was choosing to sit with me. At first, everything reset when I woke up. The status screen would vanish, the abilities gone, the lives sealed behind me. But when I turned 8, something different happened. Intelligence has leveled up sufficiently to establish link. System synchronization complete. From then on, the skills I earned in other worlds didn't vanish when I woke up. They stayed with me. The strange part is, when I look at my status screen, a lot of the abilities are grayed out. They're listed, sure, but inactive. It's like the system is taunting me with a menu of things I could do, but won't let me until I meet some secret requirement. Over time, I've figured out how to unlock some of them. Usually it means doing the action again, like retracing the steps that earned me the skill in the first place. That sounds simple, but try doing that in the real world as a kid. It's not like I can just grab a sword and start swinging it in the backyard without my neighbors calling the cops. And finding enough time alone to practice without my parents noticing, forget it.
Still, I've managed a few breakthroughs. Healing, for example. That was my first big unlock. I'll never forget the moment it worked. I cut my hand on a kitchen knife, panicked, and the system prompted me. A warm pulse spread through my fingers, and the cut closed right before my eyes. I nearly shouted in excitement, but had to bite it back. Imagine trying to explain to your mom why you don't need a Band-Aid because your body just stitched itself together in seconds. So now I have to be careful. Every ability I unlock, I've got to use in secret. Around others, I play it off, hide it, or pretend I just got lucky. There's also something on my status screen called core development, 10%. I have no idea what that means. I've tried tapping it, thinking about it, even willing it to explain itself. Nothing. The only hint I have is that it might be tied to advanced abilities. Maybe my core has to grow before anything really powerful activates. Because right now, most of the magical abilities I've unlocked are, well, weak. A flicker of light, a puff of heat, a spark that fizzles out before it does anything cool. If I were in another world, maybe they'd be useful in the right situation, but here, they barely do more than a cheap magic trick. I still practice, quietly. I time my breathing in the shower and try to shape steam with my hands. I run laps around the block to see if stamina will tick upward without looking weird. I accidentally brush my knuckles against door frames to test micro heals. I spend extra minutes taking out the trash just to stand in the dark and focus, waiting to feel the soft click of a skill waking up. Most nights, nothing happens. Some nights I feel a tiny nudge, like a door I'll open someday. Weak or not, the skills are real. And every time I train, every time I experiment, I get a little closer to leveling them up. I know one day they'll matter. The rest of that day after the scare was a blur. I shoved through the homework, nodded through dinner, pretended to watch TV, but in my mind I replayed it over and over. The size, the sound, the heat of its breath. By the time I finally crawled into bed, I was exhausted. My body wanted to sleep, but my brain wouldn't stop spinning. Hours later, sleep finally dragged me under. And when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my room. Stone walls, torchlight, the enormous cushioned bed. The Tyrannosaurus Rex was still there. Everything looked almost unchanged, as if only a few seconds had passed since I'd left. Its chest rose and fell in the same slow rhythm, and the air still carried that same musky heat. But this time, it felt different. Its eye blinked once, slow, deliberate, like it knew I would return and was waiting for me. The air shuddered with a low rumble that I felt more than heard. It rolled through my chest like a drumbeat under a song. This time, it wasn't just sound. A voice slid into my head, deep, steady, clear enough to understand. "Hello, Tim?"
And that's where today's tale ends, for now. If you enjoyed traveling through worlds with us, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because trust me, episode 2 is going to make this one look like the tutorial level. And hey, leaving a comment might even boost your charisma stat. Though we can't guarantee it'll work outside YouTube. See you next time in the Weave.